first mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need you to.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend Rashid, and I'd like to thank you all for giving me another hour of your day because you didn't have to do this. Thank you so much. I mean, there's been a lot transpiring over the last 3 months. Some of you are aware of it, some of you are not aware of it. I've been dealing with a lot of things going on. That's why we haven't had a lot of shows or whatever, but more clarity and more uh, understanding and more uh, patience is bringing me around to do more shows. I want to thank you guys for joining me yesterday also as we brought you Gregory Manarino. I just wanted to give you guys a powerful show because I had not been here for a while. But as I said, clarity is starting to get back into my mind, and I don't like to do things halfway. So I didn't want to give you halfway shows because that's not the person that I am. You see, when I try to give you other shows, they mess with the streaming or whatever. But now we're hoping that everything is a little bit better, okay? Because I had an epiphany yesterday, and I had an epiphany night before last, and it's starting to clear some of the brain fog away from me. And maybe I'll explain it more, a little bit more on the channel member Patreon stream tomorrow. Yeah, we'll be having that. So I want to thank all of you guys for joining me live on News and Politics. We're going to address a few things. I noticed that the Patreon article that I did, um, right, I believe it was the day of or hours after the so-called strike in Doha. I noticed that the Patreon and the channel member article that I did, right? It wasn't a day later that almost every major um, alternative media outlet came to the conclusions of that article. If you don't believe me, go look at the article and then go do a timestamp of the article, and then trace the next day, the next 2 days after that of your favorite large show. I'm just saying. So there was a lot of validity to what I was telling you guys, and now it's starting to break forward um, with the things that I was telling you about how Qatar had a hand in this so-called decapitation strike, how the United States could not have been caught unaware, and how all of this was planned not just by Qatar, not just by the U.S., not just by Israel, but by all of those lackeys that helped foment unrest in Syria and overthrow the legitimate authorities of Syria, and those who had went to war in Libya, and those who are warring on Yemen. And it is amazing how when I say these things, a day, 2 days, 2 weeks, a month or so ahead, I'm out of pocket. But later on, clarity shows and other people start talking, and they're even now using some of the exact same points from the article that I wrote. Okay, just go look at it. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm giving you a rundown of what is actually taking place. Okay, shout out to everybody. I don't know why this thing is not doing this. It's supposed to be showing the comments, but it's not doing it. Okay, now it is. Shout out. I gotta give it. Donald M. I love your intro music. Salute Rashid and chat. Shout out Donald. Mayday. Doing great work, Rashid. Thank you so much. Joel Bradford is in the building. Thank you for joining me. So um we're gonna just address a few things, okay? Because now more and more people are starting to see that the American empire is desperate, like I've been telling you guys. Sometimes when you're in a desperate situation, being rational goes out the window. Okay? And rationality has no place in an insane mind. And when you start to look at those things and start to look at the policies of the irrational player, see, in his mind or in their mind, they're rational because they're lunatics. But for everyone on the outside looking in can see that the policies are irrational and insane. And insane and irrational policies comes out of insane, irrational minds. They don't just spring out of the ground. They come out of thought. Thought is produced through brain. These people in office are insane because they see their world dying. They see their world dying. And this guy, I was aware of him a little bit, but not too much. So I want to address him. I don't talk on things that I have little to no knowing about, but I've checked the guy out. The guy who was killed a few days ago or whatever like that. They put him now not to undermine what you think about the guy. All right, but there's been other people who should have gotten the same attention, who were killed, but whose death was overlooked. So when I look at this and I study the situation, especially when you have a government under tremendous stress, not just geopolitically, not just technologically, because remember, they're under the gun with China. China is surpassing the United States in every area that they once dominated in. When you see a financial monetary order under tremendous stress, and then when you look within the borders of the Western world and you see the people crying out for their governments to listen to them, and the governments are ignoring them, and you're listening and you're seeing a movement for change, or you're seeing a movement for something other than that, it's people are clashing. So now you need a distraction, a major distraction. People say, oh, that assassination could not have been a distraction. Maybe it wasn't. But people also said that about 9/11. Right before the markets crashed, well, the markets did crash. All of this stuff was taking place. America's debt was coming due. She didn't have the gold that was necessary because banks do transactions with each other in gold and silver. She didn't have the money. Then all of a sudden 9/11 happened, and it was a catalyst to get the people's minds off of all of the things that took place and how America scooped up all of the gold that she was holding underneath the buildings, and it disappeared. It was so-called melted, right? All of this stuff is an illusion, what they're telling you. So they're using this guy's death. The left is so far out there. The left is, and then the right is so far out there. Blah, 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 blah. You know, they're doing this, right? But I'm telling you, this is a tried, true, tested method of domination by those in power. They choose someone who's relevant to a particular group of people, even if they're relevant to them. And they use them as a catalyst to push their goals further. We see J.D. Vance hosted the show of the deceased. I'm not going to speak ill of the deceased or whatever like that, because like I said, I knew of his I didn't know of him well, but I've seen some of his things about race and all of this stuff like this. And I will say this about everybody: the man had a right to his own opinion. He had a right to his own opinion, whether it was out there in the ether zone or not. He had that right. Okay. So I won't get into the ins and outs of his whether he was a racist or whatever. But I will say this is that the very people who are mourning him benefits the most from his death. The very people who are hosting this show, the very people who continue to drumbeat this and then they're putting him in state or whatever. You know how they do dignitaries and presidents and ambassadors and stuff. They're doing him. This is a young guy, 30-some years old, right? Young guy. They didn't treat senators and congressmen in that manner. So now when you look at that, along with the situation that transpired before his demise, his untimely demise, then you gotta say, as if you were a detective. I know some of you like to watch what is it, ID, Investigative Discovery, right? And all of these other investigative platforms or whatever. What do they tell you? What is the main thing that they tell you? When a crime is committed, motive, opportunity, and who benefits. Boom. Those are the three basic measurements of an investigation. Now one goes back and look and say, well, who benefits the most from this? It was the people who were losing the support. Trump was under, and I'm not saying Trump had any, so do not misconstrue my words, okay? Because for those of you who don't know me, I say what I mean and I mean what I say. So don't say, oh, you meant this. If I meant it, I would have said it, okay? See, I'm a different breed. I'm a different breed. So, but I'm going to give you this. Trump was under tremendous stress, strain, right? People are still calling him a pedophile. The act with bringing Tulsi Gabbard out to start talking about the Obama files and all as a distraction, that wasn't enough to take the people's mind off of this man being friends with this man who was a pedophile, who trafficked children, who trafficked young girls, who had little boys there on an island, and who brought dignitaries and leaders of countries and businessmen there, and they had this man on videotape after saying that he was not a friend of his at his party, dancing and laughing with him. Okay? This is not Rashid making any of this up. Google it. There's an old song say, Google me, baby. Google it. Okay? And I don't play this left-right politics because I don't get involved in the Democrats, the Republicans, or the so-called independents. I'm a free thinker. I don't care one way or the other which party is, because they're all the same coin, just different sides of it. So I don't have a horse in that race. But we have to examine these things. All of the trade deals that Trump promised that he had already had with the nations, did they appear? No. Was pressure building? Yes. Was his polling numbers declining? Yes. Is the economy starting to contract? Well, not starting, but contracting and spiraling? Yes. Is the debt burden growing? Yes. These were the same measurements people put under George W. Bush when 9/11 took place. Why is it any different now? They questioned Bush on 9/11 a little bit after that about this being a false flag because of all of those metrics that I just ran by you. But nobody is going to do that. Why? Because the Savior is in office? Man, come on, stop this. Stop this foolishness. Stop it. Or go back, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, your sex, or your religion or whatever. Let reason guide you. Okay? Opportunity, motive, who benefits? Who is benefiting right now the most from this? Who had the greatest opportunity for this? I'm asking. Now, if we look at those measurements and then we ask those same sound and rational questions, and this was an investigation done by on a local level, who would be the prime suspects? Just saying. Just saying. Okay. Now, and this is what kills me. See, I call it out, and people get mad. I call it. I don't care if you get mad. I really don't. I don't care if you get mad. Sometimes it's good to get mad. All right. Oh, Joel, Turkey too. Yes, Turkey had a part in all of this. All of the minion nations, they had a part in this. Shout out to Vera in the building. Keith Stone is in the building. Let me see. I'll get back to the things in a second. but what happened to the free speech people? Vance says that he urges employees to punish anyone celebrating the guy. What's the guy's name? Kirk, Charlie Kirk. I didn't even know his name. So I like I said, I didn't speak on it because I didn't know him. But Vance is urging employers to punish anyone celebrating Kirk's death. The war secretary, and notice they changed the name back to the Department of War, and I've been calling it that since I've been on YouTube. I said there's no defense in this. This is a war department, and they have finally taken the blinds or the curtains from over that for you to see it. Go back to and listen to all of my shows. I rarely ever refer to that department as the Defense Department. I always refer to it as the War Department, because it's business. It's the business of war for empire. So now we have the War Department punishing people for exercising their freedom of speech or freedom or rights, right? We have the vice president saying that anybody that makes mock of Kirk's death should be punished. These people were quiet when people like George Floyd was killed. These people were quiet when what's that white I forget his name, white guy was killed and murdered by the police. These people were quiet, but because they weren't in a political situation as this guy was. Life is life. And what about the free speech that you were saying that the liberals were trying to silence? Aren't you silencing free speech? See, this is what kills me. How ironic things are. The very people who trumpet free speech, when it affects them, they want to silence free speech. I want you to think about the seriousness of this. They don't want you to say anything about this guy. All right. All right. They want to pretend as though they hold him up highly, but actually they're using him as a tool to further their. This is not even about Kirk. This is about these people using his death to further their policies. Okay. Now, you can talk about black people. You can talk about white people. You can talk about red people. You can talk about yellow people. You can talk about brown people, right? Listen to me good. But the government doesn't want you to say anything about the person that they're using to further their interest, Mr. Kirk. They don't You can talk about everybody. You can make mark of Prophet Muhammad. You can make mark of Jesus, but you cannot say anything about Israel. You tell me what kind of priorities are those? You can make fun of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and all of the prophets of God, but how dare you talk about B'nai B'rith? How dare you talk about the ADL? How dare you talk about Israel? And now, how dare you talk about Kirk? This is absolutely insane. And nobody calls it out for what it really is. Shout out to Keith Stone in the building. Keith says, nukes are coming very soon. Sad to see, folks. Keith also said, hold on, Keith, I missed one of your. It says, I talked with a woman yesterday for an hour. She didn't cut me off, and she literally listened and thanked me. Boom. God is good all the time. Donald M. has a point. He says, man, I hate when this does this. They're trying to further divide us into groups with those big name influences. Sadly, people are falling for it. We'll be easily conquered if we don't come together for good. Man, they're already conquered. Hey, Donald, they're already conquered. Listen, the ideology of the 1% or the 2% has already been disseminated down into the masses of the people. Some people have eaten it, or like they like to say, drink the Kool-Aid, and some people have not yet. And what they're doing, they are, as you say, they're trying to further divide the people, but more so with the division. The reason they're using that division is because if you are divided, right, then they can continue to implement the policies that they want to implement, and they can fleece the people. Because remember, we're in a dying, collapsing, and imploding world order. And this world order is based and structured off US-UK dominance, financially, technologically, militarily, and politically. And all of that is dying. And they understand that. So they believe that if they can continue to keep you in an ignorant state of mind, blaming everybody but the person where the fault lies, then they can continue to dominate you and fleece you, transfer the wealth that they continue to steal from you over to the other side so that they can try to benefit when the entire thing implodes, because it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Keith Stone says she was a U.S. State Department operator. Perseverance Chameleon is in the building. Salute to Rashid and everyone. Yeah. But hold on one second. Keith Stone, he says Mossad 100%. I don't just say Mossad, because Mossad and CIA, MI6, all of those, all are one and the same. They're offshoots of the British imperial system. The Mossad. Who started Israel? Who gave them the Palestinian land? It wasn't the so-called League of Nations, as you would like, or the UN by popular vote. Matter of fact, let's see something real quick. I just want to show you something. How easy this is to pull up. All right. The word mandate, right? The word mandate is a word from the word, is an offshoot of the word mandatory, or the root of the word mandatory, which means required by law or rules or compulsory. It's obligatory, right? Meaning that you must do this, right? How did Israel get Palestine? It was under British what? Mandate. Who mandated the British to give it to them? Because they had no authority. It wasn't their land. That's just like me going into Keith Stone's house and mandating it for Perseverance Chameleon? And then you see the U.S. keeping it going through the CIA. All of these alphabet agencies are offshoots from colonial Britain, whether it's Canada's intelligence agency or whether it's the New Zealand intelligence agency or whether it's the Australian's intelligence agency. All of this is offshoots from Imperial Britain. Divide and conquer. It's as simple as that. As simple as that. Mayday says a surveillance state that can't find the perp smell a rat. And what's crazy is, check this out. I'm glad you brought that up. So, because I want to address this, and I want to get to something real quick because I know the time passes, and it passes very quick. So, isn't it ironic that it takes them a while to find it? But when it comes to people that supposedly live in caves, 9 or 10,000 miles away, or 8,000 kilometers, or whatever you want to say away, when the crime happens, immediately in the 24-hour news cycle, they know the person, they know the grouping, they know the family members, they know the hierarchy of the chain of command of the so-called terrorist groups, right? Isn't that ironic? And they can give you a rundown of where they lived, where they grew up at, the friends, the family members, everything. Just like with 9/11, when they told us that the planes hit the building and the jet fuel was hot enough to melt that steel that was tempered to take that temperature from and a direct hit from a plane. And then they tell you, listen to this, and most people bought this garbage. And I brought this up multiple times, and most people are now talking about it also. It melted the steel. It destroyed the concrete. It burst the glass. It killed the people. And yet, just out of the blue, passports made of paper survived. Just lying down on the ground from the plane that had the fuel that was hot enough to completely destroy the plane and the buildings. Man, if you don't stop with this foolishness, stop it. Stop this. So, surveillance state it is. But when empires start to fall, that's what happens. Salute to Michael Element in the building. Salute. So again, we are seeing desperation unfold. It goes back to what I told you at the beginning of our program. In the mind of a lunatic, an insane person, their policies are rational. But the people who are actually sane see the policies and the motions of the people behind the policies as lunatics and as insane. That is why the world is moving away from the dollar even quicker. That is why the United States had tried to have a bond sale. Did you hear anything about it? I'm talking to you. Did you hear anything about it? Why didn't you hear anything about it? Because there was no buyers. You know who bought it? The crack dealer, the Fed, because no nation bought it. It didn't make it on MSNBC. Oh, I believe they may have mentioned it once in a passing statement. They may have. I don't want to lie on anybody. Bloomberg, it was either MSNBC or Bloomberg mentioned it passing. Nobody else. The bond sale failed. Why? And isn't a method for the government to raise money for their expenditures is the selling or auctioning off of debt or bonds. Now, if that is the case and nobody is buying your debt or your bonds, what economic state is the country in when it's a service economy? I'm asking you. I have to ask these questions because they're rational and sound, and most people overlook the rational and the sound questions. So I have to ask you these things so that you can sit there and say, you know what? I might not agree with this guy, but I can't disagree with the logic. Let me do my research into it to see if he's right, because he can be off. And that's what I'm after, to spark a little bit of movement in that gray matter up there. For you to think outside of the box and think outside of the mainstream and alternative media, so that you can grow. Because, you know, exercise helps build muscles. Exercise that gray matter up there so that you won't be a victim to imperial collapse. So let's go to something real quick. Let me put this on the screen. I want to show you something to show you the situation economically with what the U.S. is facing. Now, I'm reading this for the first time with you guys, okay? I pulled it up to show you how easy this is. I pulled it up, I believe, as the intro to the show was coming on. I think you're right when the intro to the show was coming on. All right. And then it popped up on my screen, not on you guys' screen. So I had to take it off the screen so that I can do my normal greetings to you guys or whatever like this. So I haven't had time to look at it, but had time to read it. I only looked at the title. So I'm going to add this to the screen for you guys, because someone said, hey, Rashid, you read things, but we can't see it. And the only reason I stopped putting things on the screen to read is because sometimes there's a lag time. And I want you guys to be right there, boom, 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 to be able to, I give you, I don't understand why that would mean anything, because I give you the sources and tell you, hey, go look this up. These are the keywords. Pull this up. It's on this place. It was published this day, and this day. So I don't understand, but I'm going to make it a little more easier, and I'm going to try to accommodate those people who won't or can't do that. And I'm going to put this up on the screen again, okay? Okay, we see this, okay? This is from the Economic Collapse blog. This article was written by Michael Snyder on September 14th, right? That was 3 days ago, right? All right. It says, it's a crisis, and he uses an exclamation point behind it's a crisis. We know, well, I don't know about the school system nowadays, but I know that the exclamation point put emphasis behind whatever you're talking about, and it brings excitement or to draw your attention to what lies in front of the exclamation point, right? That's very important. Very important. Because if it was a period, it would not have been as important. But he starts the article, the headline of the article, with it's a crisis, exclamation point. Then he writes off the rest of the title, okay? So he's letting you know right off the jump that something very wicked this way comes. And he says, a whopping 67% of American workers are living paycheck to paycheck in 2025. Now, I want to ask you all, how is that a progressive, enduring, and growing economy? If you look around if you look around anywhere, the job market is crazy. We have inflation out of the wazoo. There's you go. My sister was telling me, I was over at my sister's house, my baby sister's house, yesterday, and she had just gotten home. I was already over her house, sitting having coffee. Me and my brother, we were over there having coffee, and and she had went to get her daughter from I think it was work or school, one of them, because she's in trade school, but she's also work also. So I don't know which one. And so we're sitting there and we're talking, and she said, "Hey, yo, I want to tell you guys something. I want to tell you guys something. We were in Walmart last night, and this is what they were talking to us and telling us. This was yesterday, I believe. She was telling us this. We were in Walmart last night, and we were on the meat aisle, and we kept. And my sister, she has since she had that COVID thing, her sense of smell comes and goes. All right, and so she said, I kept saying, "What is that smell?" And my niece jumped in. My niece, she was like, "Yeah." We kept looking around like, "What is that smell? It stinks so bad over here." And this goes directly to the economic collapse. This is what I'm telling you guys. And so she was in there to get chicken, I believe it was. And they picked up some chicken, and the entire roll of chicken stunk as if it had been on the shelf for, as my sister said, for a year and a half. It stunk that bad. So they called the guy over, and the guy says, "Hey, I told them that the meat in the back stinks. We can't put this on the shelf." And they put it out here anyhow. And it wasn't just the chicken, it was other meats out there. So something is happening right now. Something is happening. So she says she goes to the other aisle, and she noticed that a lot of things are pulled to the front of the shelf. And when she went to look behind to see if she could get better quality things, behind maybe 3 or 4 items, there was nothing. And then she had to take some food back to the store, because when she opened it, it didn't smell bad. But when she opened it at home, it was bad. So she went to a Publix, I want to say Publix, after the Walmart thing. And almost the same thing occurred. What I'm telling you guys is that something major is going on behind closed doors. If you go and do articles, chicken farms are closing. You see beef farms are closing. You see all of these things are cutting. It's just shutting down. I was looking at an article that was talking about one of the staple crops of America, corn, is not being able to be grown in certain areas of the country anymore. All of this is happening on the back of bond sales that are declining. All of this is happening as the world alters and turns from dollar hegemony and from doing business in dollars to doing business in local currencies. This causes desperation of the empire. That's why the United States has warships, not peace ships, but warships. She does not have builder-ups. She has destroyers off the coast of Venezuela. And then when Venezuela exercises its own sovereignty in its own waters, the United States justifies bombing little boats as to put pressure on Venezuela because they want that oil. Because remember, Venezuela is a friend of the BRICS. Venezuela is a friend and a trader with Iran. They trade with China. They trade with Russia. They trade with African nations. And America needs that. So this is why they were talking about, we may focus on the Western Hemisphere. This didn't come out of thin air. They still need people to be able to buy U.S. debt to fund the empire. And what's the closest? We've expended money in the Middle East. We're expending money in Africa. We tried to overthrow and put Ukraine on our side. We tried to put Georgia on our side. We're trying to overthrow Armenia. We're trying to get Azerbaijan on our side. We bombed Iran to try to get their oil. We bombed Iraq, and then we put a occupying force there. And guess what? China is still the largest buyer of Iraqi oil. We overthrew the legitimate government of Syria so that we can run pipelines through Syria, so that we can run it up through Turkey and up into Europe, so that we can wean Europe off of Russian oil, so that we can collapse the Russian economy. All of this stuff is interconnected, everybody. So when we're looking at this article here, you have to understand that the empire is desperate. Again, I say, there are no peace ships off the coast of Venezuela. They're warships. How in the hell can you conduct diplomacy? And diplomacy is supposed to be the art of making peace. Yet you send no diplomats. You send warplanes and warships and threats. So is it peace that you're after? Or are you after a piece of what they have? Huh? These are things that you should ask, and that should be asked by other people. So in this article, let's read it. Let's read the first part. Let me get me a sip of water. It says, when 2/3 of all workers in your entire country are just barely scraping by from month to month, you have got a major crisis on your hand. For a long time, our standard of living has been going down and the middle class has been shrinking. But in recent years, those two trends have accelerated. Let's look at something real quick. Okay? Because I like to give you definitions. All right? Meaning of the word trends. The word trends or trend, which is singular, is a noun. All right? And trends, the plural version of it. All right? We're going to use both because they're interactive in the dictionary, excuse me. And it says that a trend is a general direction in which something is developing or changing. A tendency, a movement, a drift. All right? So now we know that it said, but in recent years, those two trends, what trends? The standard of living, right? And the middle class has been shrinking. The standard of living has been going down, and the middle class has been shrinking. So that is a tendency, a movement, a drift, or a general direction in which these things are developing or changing. They understand that. They understand that. And listen, after that, it tells us this, which should give you a lot of understanding of why they got warships off the coast of Venezuela, why they're preparing for war with Iran again, why they're trying to pivot a little bit, not all the way, but a little bit from the war in Ukraine. All right. Not all the way, because if they wanted to get away, they would get out of Azerbaijan. They would get out of Armenia. They would get out of Georgia. They would stop putting pressure on all of the people that are in Russia's sphere of influence. So if they're not willing to do that, then they're not after peace, regardless of what they say. Do you understand? Because if you're after peace, you release the pressure. You turn the valve and let the pressure release so the pipe doesn't burst. You don't release a little bit and then hope that the pipe doesn't burst. You release the pressure valve so that all of the pressure can be released so that the pipe can then work as it should work. Is that not right? So, now, according to the dictionary, the word accelerate is a verb. That's action. That means action, right? So, because it says, but in recent years, both those trends have accelerated. The word accelerate is a verb. It means this right here. I want you, of a vehicle or other physical object begin to move more quickly, increase in amount or extent, to speed up, to hurry. Boom. What did I tell you? The empire is desperate because they are running out of time. And what is time? Time is a measurement of motion. What did they say about the word accelerate? To increase in amount or extent, or to speed up. Speed is a measurement of time, right? Time is a measurement of motion. To understand what time it is, you measure how long it takes to get from this motion to that motion, and you have time. To prove to you what I'm saying is, for those of you who will have watches on, look at the ticking. If the ticking hands stop and you look at your clock and I ask you the time, what do you tell me? My watch is dead. Why is it dead? Because it's not making motion. And if it is not making motion, you cannot calculate time properly, right? So for us to calculate time properly, we have to understand what is going on. What is going on from motion to motion? Man, I hope you guys are listening, man, because I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. All right. All right. I'm glad to be back. We're going to read some. We're going to go back to the chat in just a second, everybody. I'm going to so put your comments in the chat, and I'm going to go back. I know I missed a few things, but I want to just read a little bit more of this. Okay. It says, we have now reached a point where it takes $5 million to live the American dream for a lifetime. Needless to say, the vast majority of the population will never come close to making that sort of money. But most Americans continue to strive to live a middle-class life. And as a result, most people are teetering on the brink of financial disaster in this day and age. All right? Let's look at a few measurements of what they're talking about, because they're calculating time right here. All right? Let's see what they're saying, what motion that they've moved to right now. According to the survey that was recently conducted by PNC Bank, 67% of U.S. workers are now living paycheck to paycheck. A growing share of U.S. workers are struggling to cover expenses as everyday costs continue to weigh heavily on household budgets, according to new survey findings. PNC Bank's annual financial wellness in the workplace report shows that 67% of workers now say they are living paycheck to paycheck, up from 63% in 2024. So that's a trend, right? That's a trend. And it has accelerated because we know that the numbers have gone up, right? From year to date, from 2024 to 2025. We are calculating the time of the empire's fall right now by just reading this. All right, it goes further and says, the report surveyed 1,000 U.S. workers aged 21 to 69 who work full-time at companies with more than 100 workers. There are two very important points I want to make about this survey. Listen to this. Now, I'm reading this stuff with you guys for the first time as God is my witness. First of all, it only covers people that actually have a job. That's the first part. Think about what he just said right there. That is dropping a ton of bricks on you. First of all, and he said first of all, so he wanted to make this clear. He wanted to put this up. He wanted to highlight this before he tells you that. You understand? He wanted to emphasize that point before he moves further, as to give you the gravity of what is actually transpiring economically. He says, first of all, not second of all, not third of all, but number one. First of all, it only covers people that actually have a job. There are vast numbers of Americans that are not employed and that are deeply struggling right now. So when you take that into account, this survey is even more shocking. See, he wanted to put that up there to give you some oomph so that you can understand the dire situation of the American economy while America is funding a government in Ukraine, constantly talking about peace. Well, Zelensky doesn't want to listen. Well, Zelensky doesn't want to do this. If you cut the money off, you cut the head of the snake off, right? So if you truly wanted Zelensky to listen, take your bodyguards from around him, because he's guarded by British and U.S. and French special forces. Stop funding his government, right? You have control over his intelligence agencies. You have control over his military intelligence agencies. You have control over his military. You have control over his pensions. You have control over his foreign bank accounts. So how is this Zelensky's fault? Huh? He's a patsy. He's a patsy for American and British imperialism. So let's go further. So when you take that into account, this survey is even more shocking. Secondly, now he brings us to a second point that he wanted to make. Secondly, it is clear that we are rapidly moving in the wrong direction. Wrong direction. Let me address that. He says clear, crystal, that we are rapidly, not slowly, all right, not that we're about to move, but we are rapidly moving in the wrong direction, meaning that we're quickly moving, or we have accelerated. He's measuring time. He's showing you the time that we're in right now, which when you look at that and then look at Venezuela and what's going on, and then you look at what she's, the policies from the Panama Canal that she's trying to institute, and then when you look at her with the influx of terror across the Sahel and North Africa, and then you look at her turning against her own allies in Europe, then you look at her policy to destabilize the Eurasian Economic Union, the SCO, the BRICS, and then you look at her trying to foment unrest and then trying to divide and conquer the ASEAN nations against China. You have a measurement of time. The empire is out of time. That is something that you should understand. That is very clear. It's very clear and apparent. So he says, what did he say? Secondly, it is clear, not foggy, not hazy, but it is what? Clear. Let's go to the dictionary. Because when people talk to you, they talk over you because they don't respect you. When I talk to you, I talk to you. And I want to empower you by giving you the understanding of the words so that people don't say things over your head. Okay? So we'll go to the dictionary. And I want you to pay close. This is very important. These small words, these nuances are very important to understand the outline of what is going on geopolitically. Okay? So we go to the dictionary and we look at the word rapidly. The word rapidly is an adverb. It means very quickly, at a great rate. Quickly, fast, swiftly. So the economy is not in this snail movement of we may go into a recession. Man, we've been out of a recession for a year. A recession is something that takes place. They used to have it up on Google, but they took it down. A recession is something that takes place, I believe, from 8 to 16 months. After that, it becomes a depression. So we moved from the 2008 recession. When will it become a depression? Huh? Mathematics tells us that we're in a depression. I'm asking. So now you need distractions because your power, and sometimes when people are at the top, you can be their friend, they'll sacrifice you. And that's probably what they did to what is his name? Kirk? Mr. Kirk? I don't know his name. I'm not, like I said, that's probably they had to, they probably did not want it, but they had to. Now, when we revisit that and we say that Vice President Vance, who we know was funded by my man from PayPal, right? And he hosts the show of the deceased. What on the first 48? What do? They always keep an eye out for family members and those who are always pretending as if they're grieving, right? Right? Those who are out there, most times the murderer is the one out in the field helping to look for the body. Is that not right? Most times the murderer is the person that is grieving and crying on TV and saying, he was such a great man and this and this and this and this. And I'm not saying that, so don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that the vice president killed this man. I'm just using a correlation, okay? So U.S. government, please, you guys have come down on me a lot in the last few months. You know what I mean? Visiting and doing all this stuff. I'm not talking about y'all. So please don't send no more people bothering me, please. I'm asking. All right. I'm gonna look at the channel. You keep me suppressed, so you shouldn't have to worry about me. All right. So I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is the ones who are the loudest in their proclamations toward the guy, right, are the ones that you should look at the most, because because the time is rapidly running out for Empire. It's rapidly passing the inflection point. And so sometimes they have to sacrifice someone close to the boys, or to the girls that rubs elbows with them. They have to sacrifice in order to buy a little more time for the real power brokers behind the scenes. These are things that you should think of. I'm not saying that this is what happened, but I'm giving you some information, backing it up with definitions. We're reading the articles so that we can understand what is going on. This is Walt Disney. All of this is theater. All of this is theater. And I'm not demeaning or degrading that person's death. What I'm telling you is that the people that are mourning him the most probably are the greatest benefactors behind it. So then, if you're going to use common sense on a street level, you have to use it in a political and government level. Motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most. All right? Man, I'm telling you. All right, let's go to, before I read a little bit more, let's go into Mayday said Exactamundo. All right. Let's see. Penguin is in the building. Let's see. William Gilchrist says, thinking the very same, Rashid. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. I'm good. I'm just happy to be back. It's giving me therapy. It's giving me therapy. Joel Brad. Joel got it right. Those Muslims are like they say, Joel, you should have put an O instead of U. Those Muslim leaders are treacherous. Those are not Muslims. King of the so-called Hussein of Jordan. Man, this man is not a real leader. When you look at Sisi of Egypt, Sisi is not Sisi is a Jew. When you look at the House of Saud, those are Jewish. I'm not saying, listen, for the censors, I'm not demeaning, because I'm not coming down on Jews. I'm explaining to some people out there that everybody that wears a garment over in the Middle East is not Muslim. The House of Saud. Go, if what I'm saying is wrong, just go Google it. Okay? And if Google won't give it to you, Yahoo, Bing it, DuckDuckGo it. Okay? So we have to be very mindful of that. Let's see. Michael N. Facts, Rashid. They're using him for justification of something tyrannical. Absolutely. That's why he's in the news cycle 24 hours a day. That's why they're doing it. Empire is desperate. Perseverance Chameleon says Charlie Kirk. That's his name. I'm not familiar with the guy's name, and that's why I say Kirk. I say Mr. Kirk, even though I'm older than this guy. But since I don't really care one way or the other, I don't want to disrespect anybody, especially the dead. All right, and so I'm glad you put his name up there again. Charlie Kirk will be used to usher in the next phase of the war. Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you said that. Hold on one second. This man, I just saw this yesterday. Let's go to RT real quick. I believe it was on RT. Hold on one second. I hope I can pull it up. Since you said that, man, is it on here? Come on, please. I saw it. maybe I emailed it to myself. Let me go into my emails real quick. Perseverance Chameleon. Absolutely. You are right. Let me go. I hope I emailed this to myself. Normally when I see something good that I might want to talk about, I'll email myself even if I don't use it. Let's see where it's at. Give me a second, everybody. Let me see if I can look through the email. Boom. Boom. I did email it to myself, so I don't even have to look through the other. It was from the Hill. I was looking at RT, but it was on the Hill, the HILL. All right. All right. And excuse me. Perseverance Chameleon says this: Charlie Kirk will be used to usher in the next phase of the war. Right. And then Perseverance Chameleon also comes back and says this right here: they're dividing so they can embezzle the Americans, triple K, people's money. Absolutely. Now, to show you how they're using Charlie Kirk to do with this, because everything is falling apart. The Hill had an article that came out on the 15th. Okay. September the 15th, it came out 2025 at 2:14 p.m. Eastern time, which is 1:14 p.m. Central time, which I'm on. All right. And the article was by Marjorie Taylor Greene. They were quoting her. And it says, Greene revives call for national divorce after Kirk killing. And it says, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, renewed her call for a national divorce to divide the country along partisan lines on Monday, this time citing the fractured response to the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and federal funding disputes in Congress. Then she says this right here: there is nothing left to talk about with the left. They hate us, Greene wrote on the social platform X. To be honest, I want a peaceful national divorce. So now we're looking at the breakup and the fall of America. Remember when I told you guys, go back and listen to the show when I told you, when the people start thinking about the privileges and the freedoms that they once had, this will cause anger in the midst of them and cause revolution. And you'll have one leader after the other wanting to divide the country up according to their own thoughts and wishes. Remember when I was telling you guys that? Huh? For those of you who have been with the show for a long time, you know I have been saying that, right? Boom, goes the dynamite. So it's already in motion, the collapse. It's already in motion. As Marjorie Taylor says, the left hates us. That's true. But the right hates the left. But guess what? It's only the lower levels that hate each other. The upper levels work together because they're all part of the same. That was left out. Conveniently left out, right? Conveniently left out. Listen, everybody. It's been an hour. I want to thank each and every one of you all for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth bar none on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, and I want to say this to you right here, right now. If it's the last time you see me, if it's the last time I take my breath, know this, that the truth is never in vain. And to have truth, one must sacrifice, be willing to sacrifice. I want to say to you all, do right by others, not because of some financial, political, or any other kind of gain, or some accolade, or to be elevated in some group, crew, or whatever. Do right by others because it's the right, the sound, the humane, and the godly thing to do. Because even when no one else is watching you, God Almighty is watching you. As my mother always says, rest her soul, Mom, I miss you so much. He sits high, talking about the Almighty, but he looks low. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. But above all things, remember to stay righteous, because that's the only thing that's going to get you out of this time of turmoil. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Thank you all for joining me, everybody. Deuces, we're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do?